Welcome everybody to We Rave You. My name is Creighton Branch, and today we are joined by two very, very special guests. They are the duo that knows no boundaries, successfully blending their heritage with electronic music and always producing forward-thinking tracks. They're the masterminds behind the two smash albums, Get Wet and Zero, and now they join us today as their new album, The Body Never Lies, is officially out everywhere. They not only are one of the most influential and empowering dance acts over the past decade. But for those of you who may not know, they are also food connoisseurs and and Twitch streaming gurus over the past 2 years. And overall, two of the people that I respect more than almost anybody else. That is, of course, Jahan and Yasmin Youssef, also known as Krewella. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Creighton, probably one of the best intros
Yeah.
to interview I have heard thus far in our career. Thank you for mentioning the food thing. Very important.
I actually have, at the end of this interview, I have a food question for you guys just to have some fun. So,
Great.
Okay, this is I gotta tell y'all, just over the past singles that you have released for this album, I mean, this is gearing up to be one of the coolest and also, I would say, I think going to be your best body of work in your career. And Jahan, I want to start with a quote that you said, I believe it was on the Output interview. You said, Krewella is more Krewella than Krewella has ever been. And I think that is honestly, the coolest statement I've heard. So let's dive into that. What did you mean by that?
It kind of just came about in the moment, but it feels like we are more accepting and embracing of our emotions and our feelings than ever before as individuals, and us coming together and being able to communicate that in the studio and then find a way to translate that into music, into words, into art that we're creating. I don't want to say the word authentic because, you know, what we were making 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago it's always authentic to us at that period in time, whether our walls are still up or whether we still are, you know, we still have a facade that we're you know, expressing ourselves through. So that was, it's always been authentic, but right now it feels like it's almost this, what we're creating is like this umbilical cord that's straight from the gut of our, whatever we're experiencing.
Yasmin, what does it mean to you for Jahan to say that? I mean, do you have anything else?
When she said that, it was definitely a light bulb moment because I'm like, those are the words to describe how I feel about everything we've created for this album. And I do feel like, I like to think about us as kids a lot because obviously we're sisters and we grew up together. And I'm like, this album in our like teen angst, when we were like 16 and 18 in high school together, I think we would be really, really proud of this album specifically because it flexes things that have been buried in us for so long that we're finally unearthing after so long of feeling them or wanting to express them. So I feel like it's a full circle album for sure.
So as I mentioned, the title is The Body Never Lies. Let's dive into that title. What came about that? How did you create that title? I know you guys kind of talked about it when you announced the actual title, but let's dive into that. What is The Body Never Lies?
Do you want to go for it?
It was actually a lyric. We were writing lyrics for one of our songs. It was In the Water, right? That's when it came up. Yeah.
Traces.
Oh,
it was Traces. Oh, the lyric is in 2 songs.
It is.
And we wrote the lyrics of those songs within the same week. So it's like a little, you know, a little fuzzy at times, but the title was actually the title of a poem Jahan wrote. Is that right?
It started as a little thing in my journal. And then when we come together in the studio, I feel like we both bring together excerpts of maybe our journal or phrases that have been running in our minds. And we kind of piece them together, or it'll inspire the theme of the song or the title. Yeah, and I think as we're going through lyrics, you're like, that's the album. Well, it was your idea to make it the album name.
Well, the funny thing is at the end of the studio session, that was the day, that was like one of the final days we had to figure out the album title so we could start figuring out the branding, the artwork, and everything else. And at the end of it, I was just like, okay, so we have it. And John's like, wait, so what is it? And I'm like, oh, it's The Body Never Lies. I thought we'd been on the same page for like the full 8-hour session. Like, I thought we were both like thinking the same thing. I thought I had said it clearly, but I didn't. And when I said that, John was like, oh,
we have it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things that just fell together really, really beautifully. And it's one of those moments where you realize that like it, our two brains, when we both like something, we both like something. That's a really lame way to say it, but when we both feel strongly about something, it surfaces to the top.
Yes.
No matter whose brain it came from, no matter like how the idea came to be, how we collaborated to get there. When we both really feel strongly about something, it will make it to the final finish line.
Past the filter of both of us.
Exactly.
So, it was a huge relief when we realized we had the song title, though, because I think for the album title, because I think for any artist, if you write the songs and you still don't know if you haven't fully like crystallized the vision for the concept of the album, if it's a concept album, or the name, the theme, the phrase, the title of the album, whatever it is, it kind of still feels like you're floating in space and you're like, gosh, you're grasping, trying to grasp for something that's not there yet. And it's every single time that happens, it's like you'll arrive at it at the you don't know when it's going to happen.
At the magic hour.
At the magic, right? At the magic hour.
Is that something that happened with Zero and Get Wet? Because I the way you talk about your previous, or in your previous interviews, is how you guys started out being like, we're going to make this, da da da, and then, Zero was such a different route. I mean, did you guys know, like in those two aspects with Get Wet and Zero, that this was going to be like the album title, this is what we were going to base it around, kind of thing? I mean, what I'm saying is, like you mentioned how The Body Never Lies just kind of came about after the fact. I mean, did that happen with the previous two albums?
With Zero, it happened almost the same way. We were having a discussion in the car one day on this like really gloomy drive in Malibu. We were both just spitballing and having one of those great conversations where ideas are just like exploding. And it came about, and then we wrote the song Zero. So it kind of came about the opposite way. For this one, we had the concept. We had been writing through the concept of The Body Never Lies, essentially. And landing on the title to identify the concept was the final piece. And then we finished writing the lyrics of two songs and kind of folded it into lyrics. So it happened similarly, but slightly different on each album. And Get Wet was one of those things that it was like the catchphrase for us at the time. And like, we were like writing it in posts and saying it all the time, that it just felt like the right thing to do. And it more signified the era we were in, more than like the feeling that we were trying to transpose through music.
Definitely. So as I just said, this is the follow-up to, well, in a way, this is the album after Zero. Is there any kind of, when you were writing this album, like a connection towards Zero, or is this a completely different thing? Like, I don't want to call it a follow-up because I do think it is a different kind of aspect, but I mean, did you guys like see any kind of similar things from Zero, in terms of, the way you were writing? Did you feel like you were taking bits of that old album into this new one?
Yeah, to me, it definitely feels like an evolution of Zero. Like there are some songs that still have like the same magic or sparkle or emotion or tone as Zero, or the same like sinister feeling bass line or drop. But to me, this feels like it's even more entrenched in the intensity of the emotions and the energy. So to me, it feels like an amplified version of Zero, with a little more like walls removed from us on an emotional level too. So like able to just connect with whatever feelings we're having.
Yeah, there are songs on Zero that I think directly influenced certain moods that went into The Body Never Lies, but there are songs on Zero that you will hear nothing, like a song like Paradise. You won't hear anything like that on The Body Never Lies. So it's a little bit of like 1 foot in Zero and 1 foot fully, or like maybe half a foot in zero and 1.5 feet into this future realm we're in.
Or it's like a third of a foot in Get Wet, a third of a foot in
Facts.
Zero, and a
Facts.
third of
There
a
you
foot
go.
in the future.
Yes.
That's what it feels
That's
like.
exactly, spot on.
Because there are moments when I listen to The Body Never Lies and I'm like, I imagine us being on the Get Wet tour. Like I imagine that era.
The energy of
Yeah.
it, yes.
And those fans, like
Yeah.
we see the faces of those fans that have been to like 50 plus shows, the kids that are on the front headbanging on the rails.
For like 10 years.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
always been there. So yeah.
Well, that's got to be amazing that like you can create an album almost a decade later that can circle back to those times. I mean, I think one of the coolest things just looking through this album, sorry, is that when I was looking at all your past work, I was like, oh my gosh, like they have come so far. And then you just mentioned the fact that it's almost like a full circle moment. I mean, that's got to be a really cool feeling to be able to like tie yourself back to such an era that was so long ago in a way, you know?
It's always a part of us. I think everything we've
Yeah.
ever made is always a part of us, but that was such a pinnacle era that helped form who we are today, and it'll never go away fully. So
So yeah.
Interesting. Like what's cool about it too is it felt unintentional.
yes.
Like it's not like we were in the studio being like, how do we make it sound more like Get Wet or more like our like the hard dance stuff we did back in 2013. It kind of not accidentally happened, but it just happened when
yeah.
I started listening to like the full run through of the album. I was like, damn, this is actually transporting me both into the past and the future at the same time.
Yeah. Yes.
That's really cool. Let's dive into a little bit about the songwriting, the process that is. Weird times, obviously. I mean, we're in 2022, pandemic hits, everybody's really locked up into the better part of 2021. And so I think sometimes music fans don't understand how not being able to get out and experience things or see the world maybe might really hinder the creative spirits. And so with you guys, I'm curious, like, did you have to, I mean, I guess assuming you did write almost that entire album during quarantine, other than, the past like 6 months. I mean, was that difficult just because you were, stuck in a pandemic and not being able to travel or see the world or get inspiration?
I think for the first, I want to say almost year of the pandemic, I felt a little bit less creatively inspired to write new ideas, and I was more in like, let's get better at what I can do technologically. So we were really into streaming and figuring out streaming, and I was working more on production stuff and building a home studio. So there was like almost like a preparation section of the pandemic. And then once that passed, I think we were both just like thirsting to write so badly. And yeah, the majority of the album was written in the pandemic, written and produced. But I don't want to like discount I think 3 songs that were written before the pandemic started. But everything else was written during the pandemic. And I think at a certain point, we were both going so deeply inward because this time literally forced us to. We had no choice but to just think about our life experiences and everything that we had felt and seen and experienced over the last decade plus of our career, which included relationships and friendships and fallouts and anger and trust issues and joy and all this stuff to happen. So I think it actually did us a solid in a weird way in that sense, because we were able to explain ourselves and pick our feelings apart in a way that we probably wouldn't have been able to if we hadn't had the time to fully just stop and think for so long.
Mm-hmm. So do you still find it, and this can also kind of go back into having to be in quarantine, you guys have been doing this for a long time, do you still find it like difficult to create not just songs, but also just complete bodies of work? Or does it come just so naturally now? Because we see you guys in the studio and things like that, and it seems like at least it seems it might, it might be way, there might be a lot going on underneath, but it seems like you guys just click so much, like so naturally in terms of like creating your art.
I mean, it's definitely been a journey, and it'll always be a journey, but we're in a flow now that I feel like it's a different kind of flow. And it feels a little less like a big question mark. Like the future, before would be like, how are we going to put songs together? Like, what will the vision be? And now I feel a sense of like excitement of like,
Same.
I feel like we now have between the skills that we've developed as creators, producers, songwriters, musicians, and also our confidence within our creative synergy, there's an excitement about the unknown of what we get to create together. It almost feels like it's boundless and it's endless, and we can just, the more time we put in, we can just keep chipping away at more, like it's just unlimited, the amount of songs and ideas that we have. So I think there's a sense of excitement, rather than like the feeling of, in the past for me, it's definitely been like, oh my God, we need to figure out how to put together a body of work. The songs don't exist yet. Like, where's it going to come from?
I do also think that this album very easily could have ended up as an EP, but that's just how things happen sometimes. We wrote more songs than we wrote a ton of songs, to be fair, but only 10 made the cut at the end of the day. But we wrote a few at the end of the process that were like, okay, this can't not be a part of the project because it feels like it's too entrenched in the same world. Like, how could we leave it out? So it became an album out of thin air almost.
I was afraid. I remember Ozzy asked me, and he was like, let's just do an album. I was like, no. I was trying to be really careful. I was like, let's do an EP because deadlines scare us sometimes and it puts pressure on us, which it definitely did. But yeah, the determination to do it, and I'm so glad that we did that. So.
I think we definitely had moments where Jahan was trying to be careful because we are so focused on our mental health at this point in our career. Like, we've seen so many friends or colleagues just have to like take time off because they're burnt out, or I mean, we've felt that way too. I mean, we've seen some really, really sad, awful stuff that people have been through. And so we just want to be really careful with our mental health. So Jahan was just in protective mode. Like, is this too much work? And I was just in this furiously like, no, we can make it happen. And I don't know what possessed me. Like, looking back, I'm like, I don't know what it was. I think it was just this like, sometimes I do think it is a place of fear for me, which I never want to function from, but I have this fear of like, if I don't do it now, when will it happen, kind of thing. And some of these songs that are on the album, there are 3 that are like almost 3 years old now, and I'm like,
more. Drive Away is older than that.
I think it's 3.
Really? Okay.
It's like, what if they never see the light of day? I start to think of these songs as like little babies that will never see the light of day, and I start to come from a place of fear, and I'm like, no, let's just finish them so we can move on to what's next. And I don't know. So I felt like I was a bit possessed during some of this in like a maybe negative way at times, but in hindsight, I'm really glad. But
our fears complemented each other, because mine is on the opposite end of the spectrum, where I'm like, I fear that we'll fall back into the old hustle that we used to be in, where we've kind of lost sight of why you even create in the first place, and the joy is sucked out, and you're just overrun by, the nonstop touring in the studio and your schedule being completely booked up, where you get a moment of fresh air and you're like, why am I doing all this? And then that impacts your health, your relationships. So I kind of was in that mindset where I'm like, I don't want to go back to that, revert back to that. But I think where we're heading as human beings is like figuring out the balance of like, how do you be boss women, but also take care of your health and have, you're mindful of your bandwidth and your relationships and spontaneity in life, and enjoying moments on tour and taking time off. And replenishing yourself. So
Yeah, and I think that that is like such a big thing that we have seen over the course of the past 4 years is everybody was like, go, 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 go. You know, we've got to create, we got to create. Now, a lot of people you see are kind of just taking a step back, and you can call it a maturing process or whatever, but everybody is like being like, okay, you know, we can't even express ourselves the best if we're not our
yeah,
best ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. We
And
saw
so,
so many, yes, so many DJs sharing about that, or not just DJs, so many artists. So I think that's something the collective is all many of us are relating to.
so how quick did you drop zero? I mean, how quick did that notion of for you, Yasmin, that you were like, let's go for another album? I mean, did that, because you guys talked about how, you know, we want to savor the moment. You had the release party for like, I believe that was the first time you've ever had a release party, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so you were savoring a lot of this moment because it was such a big deal. I mean, how quick after Zero release did you start saying, Jahan, like, I'm ready to make one right now. I'm ready to make another album.
It was a while because if you think about it, we dropped Zero at the end of January,
Hmm.
and then we had 6 weeks before we went into quarantine. So we were prepping to play Ultra. We were prepping to do our tour. There was a lot of other stuff going on in the brain. Another album wasn't even like close to on the list of things. But as soon as we went into quarantine, that's when I feel like what I was explaining before, like the preparation section of quarantine of like building the home studio, working on streaming, figuring out so many tech issues with streaming. My God.
Cooking.
Yeah.
Spending a lot of time in the kitchen.
Cooking. Like just
Yeah.
honestly taking things slower. I feel like that was a big part of like the first 8 months of quarantine. So maybe it wasn't even until maybe end of 2020, beginning of 2021, where we started to actually get back in the studio and write fresh, like fully from scratch. And so yeah, it was a while before we did. We gave ourselves some time to gear up to the second album
Mhm.
process.
Not to get too far off topic, but to watch you guys cook was pretty inspirational. Just it was I'm a Twitch fiend, okay, so I'm
I
always
love
on Twitch,
that. I
and
love
so
that.
so it was a lot of fun to see you guys work through that, and you know that yeah, the pizza eggs, right? And so
All day. Yes.
yeah, exactly. So you know what's so interesting, and I think that this, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but Zero seemed like such a release of energy, I want to say. Just accumulation of so many experiences and years, and you know, it kind of felt like almost in a way a restart. And so with that, I mean, was it hard to like, I know that you said that it took a while to, you were, I guess, 6 or so months or almost a year to transition to making a new album. But I mean, was it hard to get out of the mindset of, you know, we just created this body of work that is like almost essentially like this is our life's work, and transition to a new album because it was such a release?
Oh man, I think we are slightly the same and also slightly different in this way. I'm a really somewhat detached human being when it comes to the art we make. Like once we make it and we poured everything in and it's done, I'm like, okay, what's next? What's the next thing? Like,
Mhm.
so for me, I'm sad that we didn't get to tour off Zero. I still feel really sad because that tour was going to be awesome and I was really excited about it, but I didn't need to like regress from that experience. I was ready to create something completely different and new. But I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I get that too. I think in my moments where I'm doubting myself creatively, or us, and I'm not sure if we're capable of what we're capable of making in the future, those are the moments where I get attached to like whatever we just released. I'm like,
Mm.
I want to stay in that world.
It's like, will I ever create something that good
Exactly.
again?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Or it's like, or if it seems like it felt, and those are the moments where I'm feeling like desperate, where I'm just like, I don't know if I have the mental capacity or the creative juices to do something again. So when I look back and analyze those moments where I've been a little more attached to what we've just released and wanting to like prolong the life of that, it's because I'm afraid to go into the future of the unknown and just see what it's like to, I've almost forgotten the process in those moments of going in the studio and being like, okay, we just spent 5 hours writing, we didn't really come up with much, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, and doing that day after day, and eventually, you know, ideas start to surface. So
Yeah, and I think that that is one of the biggest things that like an artist can discover is not having to go into the studio every time and bang out a top 40 hit, right? Because that's what everybody wants. Everybody's like, when they start, that's what they need. And like, I think that that is such a special place to get to as an artist, is to be in tune with yourself enough to be like, if I don't make something today, it's okay. I can just start again tomorrow.
yeah, and also it's like I don't have to make something that lives up to whatever the legacy of my biggest song was.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of artists, like that's their, for a while, that's their goal, or they put pressure on themselves to do that. And also that pressure comes from fans too. Like we see it all the time. Like, this was your biggest song, whatever. I'm like, yeah, like numbers wise speaking, but why would we want to recreate something like that?
I have
Sounds
no
boring.
desire. It sounds really boring.
It sounds boring. Like,
sorry to all
God
the fans.
bless
but-
the songs that those fans are talking about. And God bless these songs that have really catapulted our career, and we honor them and we love performing them, and there is magic to them at that point in time when we made them. But like, to me, it's exciting knowing what you haven't created yet. Like that's like, to me, that's a more hopeful trajectory for an artist.
Yeah, like I completely agree. Like it's cool to have Get Wet and Alive and stuff like that, but man, to see the, like, if you listen to those songs and then you start listening to things like I'm Just a Monster Underneath My Darling, I mean, the transition to that is, it's such a cool feeling. And I hope that people like appreciate it, because I mean, not every artist you listen to is able to do stuff like that. Sometimes they get stuck in a box and whatnot, but the fact that you two have been able to really branch out, and as I always say in all the writings that I do for you guys, your music knows no boundaries. And I think that that is more true over the past 4 or so years than ever before. And I think that that is one of the coolest things.
Thank you. It's funny, even talking about this now, I feel like we have thrown a lot of stuff at the wall to see what sticks, more for like ourselves, less to see what would stick with the fans, but more what would resonate with ourselves. And this new album definitely explores many different genres, subgenres, different styles of writing, but it for some reason feels the most cohesive also.
Okay.
And I don't know, I will leave that to the listeners to decide, but I feel like from what we've created in the past, like some of our projects to fans might feel like potpourri, that we're doing this and this and this, but that's just because we're chaotic individuals.
But
yeah.
No,
Well,
continue. I was gonna say, but you know what? That shows that you guys are trying to figure out who you are as artists when you're dropping an EP that's got a drum and bass, hard style stuff like that. You're trying to figure out what do we like to create. So I don't think that is ever a bad thing, that an album or an EP is just a mix of a bunch of different songs, especially starting out, because I mean, you guys love so many different subgenres that you guys were just like creating what you loved, in the sense,
You're spot on.
And I think what you just said about like, that's you figuring out who you are as an artist. I think that's scary for artists to expose that and reveal that journey to people, because sometimes you are digging through uncertain territory and you're still trying to figure out who you are, and doing that in public. Or is like, I actually have dreams about this all the time, like dreams of my messiness being exposed, even if it's not related to music. Like, and I think about it, I'm like, what does that mean? I think it's scary publicly, like really being exposed and people seeing you navigate through you, even if it's you trying to figure out your values. And like, or you even trying to figure out your words, navigating, you grasping for a sense of confidence or knowing yourself, and like, having people watch you do that is scary. But I think as artists, I think that's also important to remind people that this is a part of being human. And
so human. If
we can like kind of inspire our fans in that way to be okay and accept wherever they're at on their journey, because we're doing it in front of everyone too, then it's worth it.
And so, Yasmin, I was about to get into, but you mentioned it, how of this album, more so than I feel like in the past, explores a lot of different genres, or once again explores a lot of different genres, because y'all's earlier work does the same. We get the 3 singles, Never Been Hurt, We're Love Me Like I've Never Been Hurt, and then you get Just a Monster Underneath My Darling, and obviously the collab with Mad Girl, No Control. And those are literally all 3 different things: drum and bass, deep house, hard style. I mean, how much, I guess my question is like, how fun was that to be able just to go back into the studio and be like, we're making a drum and bass track, we're making a drum and bass track, we're making a hard style track, we're making a hard style track, it's like things like that.
I think because Jahan and we have a very similar thought process on this. Like we don't like to subjugate ourselves to barriers and boundaries in the studio at all. And that's something that we've gotten better at. It's almost like a skill we've had to learn, because we did go through a phase where we were trying to be in a box on purpose because we were chasing something. And now it's this thing that we get to flex in the studio. It's like, what do you want to make today? Well, let's just experiment with this. Sometimes we'll literally not know what we're going to make. We'll just set a tempo in Ableton and be like, 160. Let's see what happens. There's so much that could happen at 160 BPM. Let's just find where it lands. And so it just feels like freedom, to be honest. It's just pure freedom.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say that's got to be one of the most freeing things as a songwriter, is to not have that pressure of being like, it's like, oh, we make, progressive house, so let's make progressive house all the time. Or you can go in and be like, I'm just going to make whatever feels right. And like, if that's what feels right, that's what's going on the project.
For sure. Or like the trend right now on Spotify dance playlists is like 110 down tempo. I just pulled something out of my ass. But yeah, it's just being able to ignore all of that. It's a privilege also, though, because we have fans that would literally be so accepting of, I mean, maybe not anything we did, who knows? We haven't pushed their boundaries that far, but we have fans that are just really ride or die. So it's partially that too. So it's,
do you feel in like being able to do that allows your creativity to, like, I guess it does, but like allows your creativity to just take it to a whole nother level? I mean, before, than when you were able to, like, back in the day. Now that you have that freedom, I mean, do you see that your songwriting and just overall creativity has really, like, elevated to a place you've never seen before?
Yeah, I mean, we wrote songs on Zero that we had never experimented with. Like, if we're just talking about songwriting, writing style, we wrote songs that we had never experimented with a certain style before, and they ended up being fan favorites. So it almost gave us this green light to, like, no pun intended, it almost gave us this green light to just really, really feel what we wanted to feel and spit it out into a song. That's a really silly way to say
it. No, I understand that. So let's talk about the 2 collabs, Mad Girl and Booze. How did that come about? Let's dive into both of them. Let's start with Never Been Hurt. How did that collaboration come together? Because it's a cool collaboration.
Thank you. We started writing that song, was it like 3-4 years ago now?
3-ish.
Like a year before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was, I think in its original state, it was like a kick, like a really simple house groove, some really beautiful piano chords. We wrote it with our friend Cody Tarpley, and some really, like, basic, I think the hook was there and the verse lyrics, pre-chorus.
It was like the beginnings of like a bass house, deep house song. Very demo stages.
And we always loved the writing, but we were kind of waiting. It was just one of those things, we're kind of waiting for the opportune moment or the right collaboration to bring it to life. And we actually never met the Bose brothers in real life. It was through the internet.
Yes.
We did.
Really?
What were we on Zoom with them and trying to, like,
well, no, they actually did a remix for us from
the Zero album.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just blanked real quick. And we always knew we wanted to collab with them since they did that remix. And so it just was one of those things where we sent them a few songs, and this is the one that raised its hand. And yeah, we definitely had a couple Zoom sessions where they were in China and we were in LA, and we were trying to figure out, like, how to make a session work over the thousands of miles in between us. But it was really fun to work with them. They're super talented. They actually are mind-blowingly good at so many different genres. Yeah. So when they wanted to do a more housey track, it was like, yeah, let's go. It was like a no-brainer.
So shifting to No Control with Mad Girl, somebody you've known for a while. Tell me how that one came about.
Well, first of all, we're hardcore fans of her. We
absolutely.
Our sets always have at least like maybe two songs of hers that we throw in. So we're big fans of her. Her music goes hard. Like whenever we play her songs, like fans go crazy at our shows. And that one started, actually wasn't even supposed to be a studio session. We were doing a photo shoot.
In a studio.
And we were like, oh, cool, we're in this like nice ass studio. Yes. Let's take advantage of like the hours they're paying for. This company is paying for to do the photo shoot. And like, so it started from just utilizing that studio space that someone booked to do a photo shoot for us.
Yeah, we brought the studio computer to the studio photo shoot in hopes that we would have some time. And we just started banging out that demo with no writing on it yet. It was just like maybe some gibberish, and we got the intro stuff, the chords, and like a very rough first drop. Like if you heard it, it sounds so much better now, but it was just like the rough version. And we started to arrange it a little bit, and it sat in the demo folder for a few months, I think, until we started discussing what collab would be good for Sabrina, Mad Girl. And this one was, what was the original title of it? Fist Pump.
Oh, Fist Pump.
I was like, to Sabrina, I was like, so we have this demo called Fist Pump. And it was really dope to send it to her and see what she sent back, because she infused what we had already done with her own special sauce. And that one was an easy one. That was also a no-brainer. It was so easy to work with her. She's just a great person, too. We've known her since, I think, 2012. Yeah, it was really fun. And then we got to film a really fun music video with her, too.
Yeah, that was a really cool music video. What's that place called?
It was the Santa Monica Pier.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've never gotten to go. I don't think I've been to California since I was like 5, so I don't remember any of it, but I know.
You gotta visit.
Yeah, right. So I want to get in a second. I want to get into collaborating with women, but before that, I want to go ahead and just finish out the last thing that you guys dropped, and Just a Monster Underneath My Darling. When I wrote about this, I thought that this was not only one of the coolest titles that I've ever heard, but I think the drop is so unique and fresh, and I just absolutely love everything about this. And it's so cool to see you guys explore that D&B, the drum and bass roots, because I know how much you guys eat it up, you know.
Yeah.
And let's discuss a little bit about that song, because as people have seen in your output interview, it started out, very, very basic burrito beat, whatever you.
Yes, you know.
Why did we eat burritos?
We ate burritos that day.
Yeah, and so I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's tell the viewers, like, how did that song come about?
So we had basically created a rough demo maybe 4 months before that day of that output shoot, and it was kind of sitting, waiting to be taken to the next level, but we were working on other songs. So that day was like let's get some vocals on this. And we had like the basic idea for the drop. We had really rough production, but when one of us starts going in the booth and gibberishing lyrics, a lot of the time what comes out is like a drop lead also. So in that video, obviously you see us like chopping up Jahan's vocal, and that ends up being the drop lead, which is one of my favorite things to, like, looking back on it, I'm like, oh, that's literally magic. Like, oh my God, that just like came together like that, and now it's the final version. Because when I'm in that moment, I don't actually know if that's gonna make it to the final version. Yeah. But looking back, I'm like, damn, that was dope to see it in action.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just We had a really good time writing that one because we had a long conversation before we even dove into the lyrics.
Mm.
We wrote a lot of the melodies and we had like the gist of all the melodies laid out, but then going into songwriting for the lyrics, Jahan and I just sat down. I think we were in my backyard, maybe. I don't know.
Mm.
And we just
We
had
went
this,
deep.
we had this like really long-winded conversation, which led to us very easily just like spitballing the lyrics, which is one of my favorite things when things just flow like that. That's how you know it just is right. And from there, it was just like fine-tuning all the production elements and creating all those like little tasty moments. But it was a fun one because I feel like we fully went down the rabbit hole
Mm.
mentally into that song.
And
I think,
what's oh no, continue.
oh, go ahead.
Now I was gonna say with that, I mean, I think it tells one of the coolest stories you guys have ever written in a song before. And so you mentioned about how it's a dual perspective kind of thing. Let's talk a little bit about the lyrics and the story behind that song because I do think it's a really nice story.
Thanks,
Thank
Creighton.
you. I love how you phrased it when we did, like, I think when we shared it with fans, like our caption and everything about like seeing someone else's trauma they've inflicted on someone else, or the pain or the hurt they've inflicted on someone else, but also recognizing like there's a monster within us as well,
Yeah.
within yourself.
Yeah. I think it's I feel like a lot of our conversations lead us to uncomfortable places. Sometimes like really cathartic places where we're just exposing all this truth that we've been feeling, but a lot of it is uncomfortable. And one of those things is looking at people who have maybe done you wrong or done something wrong that you see that you really just condemn. And the worst reminder, but the most important, is that like that, I guess that kind of, I don't want to use the word evil because that's too like, it boils it down to new, it's not nuanced enough, but those parts of people exist in all of us. And I feel like even if you don't want to, you need to look at that in the face and see that we're all capable of doing and not doing. So I guess the dual perspective of the song, there's like there was a joy in writing it because it was almost like we were exercising this fantasy of like bringing someone to their knees for something awful they'd done without actually doing it in reality. So it's fully in the fantasy, but then it's also understanding that we are also capable of awful things, is my really long-winded way to say.
It was our, I think it was our first time writing the hook, the chorus from the perspective of someone else. I should have seen it come in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I could keep it running.
But I was
Way too high to see the
warning.
warning. And
Yeah.
going back to the word fantasy, it's like the satisfaction we got out of that from writing from the perspective of someone who's been so delusional in whatever sort of like pain or hurt or yeah, atrocities, whatever it is that they inflict upon others, and then finally coming to that moment where they're realizing what they've done and
they can't
holding
escape.
themselves accountable. Yeah, so it is a fantasy in that way. But yeah, what I was going to say earlier about the outro, I love that we placed that as the last song
On the album, yeah.
because the outro truly feels, even though we don't know what the future work is and we haven't started it yet, it feels like it's like the bridge into
Yes, trickles in.
whatever the next body of work is.
I like that.
That's really cool. That was one of those things I heard that drop and I go, how did they create that sound? And then I see all it is your vocals. And I was like, that's too good, man. I was like, you can't.
I literally, every time I've listened to the masters of the album or like we're going through the mixing process, I am sometimes blown away why not every single electronic artist or group doesn't use their voice or has a singer that they can lean on, because using the voice is so much fun for us. Like being able to flex that side as not just singer-songwriters, but using our vocals in production aspects is Like, I'm just so like blown away that we have this in our back pocket at all times. And it's like,
And
wow.
it's a breath of fresh air because you're not just sitting creating a synth and serum all the time. You know, you're
It's
getting to
not a
actually use
preset.
organic. Yeah.
It ain't a preset
Yeah.
though.
So one of the things, Yasmin, that you have said is you've really wanted to highlight women in music, and I wanted to know how much of that was a focal point in this album or in the creation of, because there's some really amazing women producers and DJs and stuff like that. And I wanted to know like how much of that was in your mind to being like, I want to empower and highlight these women as much as possible
I think
for
that,
both of you guys.
yeah, I, I think for the future, we are going to be focusing far more on collaborating with women and non-binary people in the space. But for this album, we love those two collabs. Like, I'm so grateful that those two people wanted to work with us and be a part of the album. But I think we actually wanted to focus more on just the two of us and what the two of us were capable of creating in our own little bubble. And I guess from here moving forward is where, with our record label Mixed Kids Records, which hasn't done anything but release Krewella yet, we'll I mean, like, this is a big dot dot dot. Like, I can't talk too much about it, ellipses, but we will be definitely focusing on more of that in the future through the label, and then also through collabing, through remixes, through bringing women on tour with us. Like, it is highly important for us because we know how hard it is to break through, but we also know how much of a shame it would be to ignore all the boundless female talent out there. It's insane what's out there. And to ignore it would just be a shame. It would just, like, the scene would not be what it is without it. So we
No,
just want to
you're absolutely right. And I feel like sometimes women in the EDM scene get kind of just put in a bubble off to the side. And you know, it's like, well, they do their own thing and everybody else kind of does theirs. But I feel like some of the best producers in the game at all are women. I
I love
mean,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you two yourselves are just, you know, right up at the very top. And so I think that
Honored.
being able to merge that gap, and you know, just because you see a female on stage does not mean the quality is going to get less. I mean, actually, if you ask me, most of my artists, my, you know, favorite EDM artists are women. And so I think that's one of the coolest things that you guys could do is with your platform is highlight artists that some people haven't even seen or would even give the thought of seeing, you know, and then they realize, wow, this is a really good producer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that you say like some of your favorite DJs you've seen or listened to are women, and the weird, like, the double-edged sword about that is I do feel like women feel like they have to try
Mhm.
so much harder to prove themselves, which is sometimes
Absolutely.
why some of my favorite DJ sets also, like, the DJ sets that I have on YouTube that I've watched over and over again, so many of them are women. And I'm like, okay, that's because they're dope, but also, like, to climb that fucking ladder, man, it's like it's just like a lot harder. So I know women are out there trying X amount of times harder to prove themselves. So it's the double-edged sword. It's like that's why you're getting, like, that's part of the reason why you're getting that product at the end of the day, is because it's like, well, if I'm gonna have to like fight for my spot, then I'm gonna fight for it. But it has resulted in crazy good art. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
that's
no.
the double-edged
No,
sword.
you're absolutely right. I mean, like it is 10 times harder for women to make it in the industry. And I think that anybody that can climb the top of the food chain, I mean, they should get the utmost respect all the time. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so,
Did you have anything to add to that?
You said it perfectly.
so moving on to touring, this is one of your guys' strong suits. We've seen it time and time out. You guys create so many unique tours, whether it's going back to the Crystal Volcano stage, or you know, or the live band with the Sweatbox tour. I mean, you guys are always pulling, you know, stuff out of the hat. What? And I think when fans, especially me, saw that this tour was going to be a live tour, I think we started salivating at what the possibility.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to give too much away, but give a little like tease of what they can expect on this tour.
This is probably going to be the most Krewella music we're ever performing.
Maybe
So
100%.
yeah,
I don't even
we're
know.
so excited about that. We're about to enter that space where we start actually building the tour and the set together. The Body Never Lies tour is going to be some DJ sets, so it's going to be these grimy, sweaty clubs, and then some hybrid live shows, which is us DJing, and then also incorporating live vocals. What I'm most excited for is putting our whole collection of music together, like the old and the new songs, and seeing what worlds different songs fit into. Like what songs from The Body Never Lies mesh and pull from the same emotions as songs on Get Wet, and kind of telling the journey through, I guess, seeing which songs are in the same family in that way.
We like to, when we do live shows, we like to organize our sets in pockets of emotion a lot of the time. So if you come see us live, it's like we're in like the color blue right here, and all the songs in that color blue are like from all the different bodies of work, but they all mesh together perfectly, and so on and so forth. So it's really fun to build a set. And I also think that I'm just excited to see what songs are going to be really nice in a broken down version, and do just like different versions of the songs live. Maybe it'll be a VIP version, maybe it'll be an acoustic or broken down version. We have a lot to explore. Like we have most of the whole month of March to just explore that, and I'm really excited to do that.
In a way,
I was just gonna say, bringing the album to life is in a new way is exciting, because it's I guess it shows the album is the music is never done.
It's fast.
You can keep expressing it in different ways, whether that's how your vocals evolve, as a performer, and how you sing songs differently, how you move your body on stage, how your energy changes. Like the energy that I have, I did not have 2 years ago even. So I don't think I would have been able to bring whatever sort of energy I have right now, and the bandwidth I have right now. So I think on that level, I know it's a little more abstract, but on an emotional level, what we have to bring to tour feels very fresh.
You did a few shows in a way kind of as a makeup to the Zero tour, but something that was so big and you guys had worked so hard on. I know that you still are a little, salty about the pandemic shutting that down. And so I think for fans also, this almost feels like in a way like a reunion or a makeup for what we didn't get to experience in Zero. I mean, for y'all, is that the same way? And like, it's got to feel great just to get back on the road and, do a full tour for something that you guys never actually got to do for your last album.
Oh, I'm going to be equally as excited to perform songs on Zero that I am for The Body Never Lies. It's like they're going to they're both going to feel untapped for me, which is just so many. It's like 20 songs right there that it's just like a field day. I'm so excited. I can only imagine, like, there are certain songs off Zero that I was dying to perform. Dying. Like Ghost, Anxiety. Like there are songs that I'm just so excited to be able to like hold that mic and sing it, and I just get chills thinking about it. So yeah, it's going to feel fresh, both of those albums.
And, to attest to anybody that's never seen you guys live, they're not kidding, guys, when they say it is one of the like craziest, sweatiest experiences.
Lord.
It is awesome. And so, I can't think of a time more than the one that when I have seen you guys where I was just like drenched in sweat at the end, and I was like, this is the greatest feeling ever, So like you guys go absolutely hard.
Tell me about it. Our in-ear monitor tech, like, how when you're doing live, you have a pack and then a wire with the in-ear monitors. We're a nightmare for him because he had to start putting like condoms on our pack. We got so sweaty because our sound would just cut out from just like us dripping on this equipment.
It's so gross, but literally a condom was the only thing that could protect the pack from our like dripping sweat. It's so funny, but like, yeah, it's what we got to do to make it happen.
Yeah, you guys even blew out a subwoofer or whatever, you know. So I mean,
New Year's. That was not our fault, I don't think. I
Yeah.
think
okay,
that was just, you know, it was bound to happen no
I got
matter
you.
who
Oh
was
yeah.
playing that heavy bass music that night, whoever it happened to be us. So.
So with Ultra coming up, it's a month out as of today. That is a place that you guys from Miami you have not been to in quite some time. That's got to be really exciting to finally get back there and play such a massive festival, especially now that Ultra, you know, has been unable to go on for the past 2 years, and you guys are getting to go and perform. I believe it is a live set, correct? That you guys will be doing.
It's actually going to be a DJ set.
It's a DJ set. Okay,
It
so
is.
it's got it. But like, how exciting is it to finally get back and play a festival as big as Ultra somewhere? I think you guys haven't been in what over? I mean, 2016, something like that.
15,
15.
It'll be
Whoa,
7 years.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually when we were in Prague, right when COVID was brewing in China.
Mhm.
Ultra was the first cancellation we got word of. I remember being in our living room at the Airbnb in Prague on our day off.
Yeah.
We're like, Ultra is not happening. And it was surreal. It was like, Ultra is getting canceled.
It's like, what?
The world is really stopping if Ultra is getting canceled.
For real, yeah. So
Mhm.
it's gonna be one of those moments. It'll be our first festival back after quarantine. So definitely
Wow.
really, is that true? Did I make that
Our
up?
first festival. I
That
think
is
so.
that is crazy how time
Yeah.
flies.
I might be wrong because like I've got scrambled egg studio brain, but I think that's
so.
true.
Yeah.
So it'll be a really fun one to just like release some energy before the tour, and then tour starts literally a week after Ultra. So it's gonna be a fun week. A little crazy.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap up this album a little bit, I know you guys talk about your mixed heritage and how much listening to those sounds influences you guys or your music making. Especially you can hear it in Zero, and then you can hear it in these singles that you guys have released. How big of that is a key now in your song process, your writing, and your production? It's like we want to incorporate very worldly elements that are either from Pakistan or India or just anywhere. How big is that of a thing now?
I see it as like at our core, we're making electronic music. I see it as like, when you're cooking, you're adding spices in, adding flavor.
Okay.
I think it more so happens in the realm of us expressing ourselves to our fans, or even just talking about our heritage and how important it is to us to dig into our roots, especially when there's a lot of shame, I think, for Pakistanis and Muslim people in the South Asian community, a lot of shame and kind of pushing that side of them away, wanting to Americanize themselves more. So encouraging people to honor their roots if that's something that they want to do or feel that completes them as a person. But I think musically, like, we would love to collaborate more with South Asian artists, spend more time in India and Pakistan, because those are, whenever we go there or whenever we've been to India, it's definitely been a place where people have welcomed us with open arms and it's felt like home.
The shows are crazy.
Yeah. But on the production end of thing, I would say it's like lightly sprinkling in moments.
You'll hear it on this album for sure. I think it's intrinsic in what we do at this point to always sprinkle, like Jahan said, when we are making food, it's all we got to put the spice in. So it's like when we're making a song, it's the same way. But yeah, it's gonna be, it is just a part of who we are. So it'll just turn up in places where it just feels natural.
I don't want to keep you guys for too much longer because I know we've been talking for a bit, but
You're good.
I was telling you guys that I think one of the coolest stories you have is your dedication day. And I know that not everybody that has followed us knows about that. And you guys had the tattoos, 6-8-10, and just kind of briefly tell that story about what that dedication day actually is, because you don't see that all the time from artists. I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, 6 is June or July?
June.
June
June.
8th, 2010. But prior to that point, we had been working on music not full time. So like we were students, we had jobs, and we kind of were in this place. There's a fork in the road, and we're like, okay, do we want to fully commit to this and see where we can go and how we develop and mature as artists if we invest more time into this and go all out? So that was the day that with our former member Chris and a former member Nathan, we decided former manager Nathan decided to pretty much drop everything and to commit to music. I think something that like I don't want to skate over is that we did have to get jobs like a year after that. We had to get jobs again because I don't want it to like, I don't want to paint this picture of this like fairy tale of like, oh, the day you just drop everything, that's when the magic happens. But like it's not a linear journey. Sometimes it feels, like even after you decide to commit and go all in, a year later, I was a server and you were also working a hostess. So we had to do that, even though at the time it felt a little bit like, gosh, we're going back on our word. So I think that's such an important part of this story also.
And I think with that, it's like one of those things where it's like you're so ready to have a career in music, be able to do it full time and whatnot. And you're like, now's our time. And then you keep thinking, you're ready. And then eventually when it does happen, you go, you know what, I might not have been ready yet, but now I realize that like I am ready now. Like this is the perfect timing. And so I think that is a big thing that for you guys to say that, when we dropped everything, it's not like, oh, the next day we made the EP and we made a live and everything popped out.
Exactly.
It was a heck of a journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you got to pay rent. So
yeah, exactly. You got to pay rent.
Got to pay the mom back for the microphone.
Yeah.
I feel that. With the live, some people that are listening to this album might not have heard you since then. So when it comes to live, I think that is one of the coolest writing stories that you guys have told about how it was New Year's Eve, I believe.
Yeah.
And mistake me if I'm wrong, but you guys had written 2 separate verses, correct?
Yeah.
And so explain how that, because that is your biggest hit. How did that come about in terms of, what a magical moment for you guys to go and write 2 separate verses that actually worked,
Right. Yeah, because you were completely isolated on you wrote your verse, but it fit, and it's a completely different melody from the first verse, but it feels like it's such a breath of fresh air after that hook. Like I'm actually imagining in my mind if we had arranged that song so the first verse melody came in after the hook.
I don't know if
I would have been bored. I would have been like, next. Like,
no, I don't think it would have been boring. I just can't imagine it because it's not how I've been hearing it for the last almost 10 years.
But yeah, it feels like such like it uplifts the mood even more when that second verse comes in. I think what's like so cool about journal, like we both journal and we both write our lyrics in our journals, but like looking back at the emotions you were feeling or what was going on in your life or what your week was like when certain songs were written, that's cool about reflecting. Because when I look back in my journal, it says, so our cousin Nitha, who lives with us, she had been visiting from Texas, actually. So we were in Chicago at the time, and we had like a bender week of going out to clubs. I think we had like, talk about going all in and just focusing on Krewella full time. We definitely had just like, I think it was like a whole few days of going, Wednesday, Thursday, industry night, go to the club. I don't know. I wasn't using a fake ID.
I was hella underage. I don't know.
Yeah, we were just, and I had so much guilt about that. I think when our cousin left, in my journal, I was like, I'm feeling so shitty. I feel like I'm like not a good enough artist because I haven't written in days and we're just going clubbing. And then I think that was like the night of when we started writing live. And those were my thoughts in my head. And I think it shows that like going back to the whole journey, like you can't be so strict and linear all the time. Sometimes you need to pull yourself out of that little cube or that room you're writing music in and just have a club bender week.
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of those experiences to create the songs. Hands down, 100%.
And it's not like directly related to the clubbing week. And I think they're like, even when I look back our lyrics, I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes they just happen. They're in the moment, and it's just flowing, and you're not overthinking it and trying so hard to like, you're not trying so hard to tell like a very literal story with it. So I think that song is more so about an emotion.
Yeah, a feeling.
A feeling, yeah.
Yeah, and you're 3 albums in. Do you feel that, I mean, how long do you feel like it took you to get to the point of being, you mentioned journaling, being completely vulnerable in your songwriting? I mean, how long do you feel like that took to be open about everything and be like, we're just going to pour everything into our songs? I mean, was there just a moment where you're just like, all of a sudden, like, we're just going to write like this? Or did it take a gradual, time?
I think we're still getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the door really fully opened when we started writing for Zero.
Yeah.
But before that, there were trickles of it. And I love our past songwriting. I never want to like say anything bad
Absolutely.
about it. Like Jahan said, it was authentic to who we were at the time. But I think we were writing from this place of wanting to please more people and cater to a more mass audience. And now we're definitely a little bit more focused on how do you feel today? What's been going on in your brain? And it's a different process, but it feels so good. It feels so much better now for me, and I feel like for you too. It just feels natural.
I think on Zero, when I look, I agree. Zero, I think the door started opening in like a direction, or we started going in a direction that we hadn't been before. But when you spit the verse of Martyr, that was a stream of, Yasmin went in the booth, and sometimes we'll just go in there and just,
see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens. Stuff will flow. I remember hearing your lyrics, and I was like, whoa, I feel like that's stuff I think in my head, but I haven't figured out a way to actually communicate it or to even write it in my own personal journal in words. But it's stuff. So I thought that was very inspiring for me. I'm like, wow, the fact that you were able to just like, this portal was open. And a lot of the time, like even in the booth on the microphone, there's this like filter that you're not even aware of, where you have all of these mind-blowing thoughts in your head, and like deep thoughts or existential thoughts, or like things that seem so profound in your head, but there's something blocking you from just like communicating that. So yeah, I think that was a moment in the studio where I'm like, wow, that's deep. We could go that deep.
So I know this gets said a lot, but I think that after, not that we're out of the pandemic yet, but just after experiencing it for virtually almost 2 years now, I think the question that when people say, is there anything that you want to do next or anything you want to venture outside of music, I think is taken on a whole new meaning now, because I think we've all realized, like, time is precious, life is very precious. And you said it earlier in this interview, Yasmin, that, that you don't know, you might as well do it because you don't know if you ever get to, really. And so, is there anything that Krewella or you two individually, after being in quarantine and the pandemic for so long, that you go, I want to try this, whether it's inside music or outside music?
We have lots of dreams.
We have so many dreams. But a lot of them might not be career-based dreams.
Yeah.
Some of them might just be like, this is how I want to spend my free time.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to say. I'm in a weird place with this because I feel like we've recently cracked a code with music making that we've leveled ourselves up. And I'm like, okay, now I just want to explore this new level and see where that goes. So it's hard for me to even think about doing anything else long term because I'm just like really in love with where we're at music making wise. I don't know, but there's like we were talking about food, like, man, I love food. Jahan loves food. We love a lot.
I think we both really want to go to Pakistan, though. I think we're at that point where like we gotta perform for our brothers and sisters over there.
And it will happen soon. It will.
That definitely, like, in my mind, I'm like, that's a highlight moment for our career.
That's the I could die happy moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and having a dad there too.
Have you ever discussed or thought of doing a full like acoustic album? I've always wondered that
We
because
have.
yeah, because I know you
Good.
guys always sprinkle it, you know, in the albums
Oh,
or like in on YouTube, you know, you guys will do one or there. I mean, so like, yeah, is that something that you've thought, hey, we should maybe let's like try and venture out and do this?
would love to.
Yes,
I
100%.
see us, we're gonna be like old ladies someday. We're not gonna be able to rage, so it's like you
My
have to
knees,
develop.
man.
You have to develop your skills
Yeah.
to prepare for the future of how to perform for people. So
No, we've definitely talked about doing an acoustic. Not when we're like old
Yeah.
ladies, but like
Yeah.
sooner than
Yeah.
that. But we've definitely talked about doing something like that.
on
Of
vinyl,
course. Yes.
Oh,
beautiful,
that'd
oh,
That's the plan.
tasty.
That's the plan.
that'd be amazing. So I just want to get into some fun ones real quick, two questions to let the people kind of get a sense of your personality. Jahan, I want to start with you first. So as we talked about earlier, and we all know you guys are very big foodies. You love the culinary arts. So this can actually be for both of you guys. But Jahan, if you were on an island and you could only eat one of Yasmin's home cooked meals,
Oh,
I'm
Which one?
so glad it's just anything that she makes.
Yeah.
oh
Good.
shit.
which one would you pick? And Yasmin, you can also answer for yourself too if you want.
No, I'll answer for Jahan because Jahan's a great cook too.
You make some really good butter chicken.
Oh, thank
You make
you.
and like your Thai curries. Just
My
anything
Thai curry's ice, but my butter chicken's really
is
good.
good. Oh, the soup you made on the day we were writing. I'm just a monster underneath my darling.
It was like a
butternut.
spicy curry butternut
Done.
squash soup.
Done.
Oh,
I'll take that. Even though I might need more carbs. I
Yeah,
might need like a loaf
And like
of
a
sourdough
loaf
on the
of bread
side.
to dip in it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Jahan's been making some good ass banana bread lately. I know we're not
They're always
saying like
they're always a bad science
No.
experiment.
they're not. They've been really good.
You need a lot of butter though to make
It's
it
a-
good. You need a shitload of butter to make it pretty good.
We make like really good healthy food
Mhm.
at home. Like Jahan makes homemade bone broth. Like she's a witch in the
Oh.
kitchen. But if I was on an island, I don't know if I want like banana bread and
Yeah.
bone broth. I probably want like like
Gross.
mac and cheese and shit, like something to feed my soul because I'd be really sad I was dying on an island. So it's
Yeah.
a hard question to answer, but
yeah, because like my favorite food is Indian food by far,
Oh.
top notch. So I envy you guys for being able to, you know, cook so well. I mean, that is a dream of mine to be able to make something that is worth eating, you know.
Oh,
Put on a
dude.
good playlist and take your time.
Yeah, you need time
Yeah.
and you need the right recipe.
You need quarantine.
Yes.
You need the right recipe to follow because some of these recipes I've seen online, I'm like, that is not nearly half the amount of spice that should be in this dish. And
Well,
so,
yeah, because I looked it up on YouTube and I tried it. I tried two types of masala, and every time that I ate them, I was like, this ain't it. I was like,
It's
oh,
hard.
yeah, it's hard. And so
Yeah.
I envy you guys for being able to cook so well. Yasmin, I believe at least that you are a massive Harry Potter fan. Is that
I
correct?
am not
Okay.
not a big J.K. Rowling fan, but a massive
But Harry Potter. So my question to you is, if you could pick one spin-off series that explores any Harry Potter character, who would you like to, you know,
Oh my God. This
who would
is
you
a-
like to explore the story of?
This is such a good question. This is probably such a unpopular opinion, but maybe it's not. But I love Snape. He's like one of the greatest characters, one of the greatest character arcs in the whole book. But like Snape aside, it would probably be a combo of young James Potter, Sirius Black, and Ramus
Mhm.
as like their time in Hogwarts, but then also a little bit of young Snape because they had so much overlap.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sounds
No,
like
no,
a
no. Yeah.
language.
So, yes. But
I'm-
like if I had to choose one, then just Snape. Just
Yeah, I think that's a great answer because I think Snape represents a lot about life itself because he is such a misunderstood character, but in the end, he is doing like his whole intention was always to be, you know, the best he could be to protect Harry, but he was always misunderstood and he just took that burden because he knew it was what was best.
The dude had to make the hardest decisions in the entire series, the hardest, and I feel for him. Yeah, yeah.
So last question, studio question.
Yes.
If you could only I will allow you to include all of Arcade, but if you could only
Oh,
produce with one plugin, what would it be?
oh
Only
no.
only one. So like you can't use Arcade and then Valhalla. You can only pick, you know, well,
Can you give me like a plugin company so I can use everything from? You're like, no,
I
no.
mean,
Okay, taking into account that the Ableton stock plugins are far beyond what people give them credit for. This question hurts my soul. I mean, if I'm being the most specific, I use Serum more than anything. So I have to choose Serum. You can't create
yeah, exactly.
Serum with an Ableton stock plugin. So I think I have to choose Serum, even though that pains me because I want to choose other things too. I
Jahan,
don't
do you
like
have
this
an answer?
question, Creighton. I don't like
What?
it.
You
I don't
don't?
like this question.
I was thinking when I was writing it, I was thinking too. I was like, man, because I dabble in Ableton, and I was like, I use Serum almost every day, but
Yeah,
God, there's a lot of those plugins that like use that just like give that extra
of
spice,
course.
and so like it's like if you
Yep,
don't have it, you don't have it, it just doesn't work right. So I think that is an interesting
exactly.
question. Jahan, do you have an answer for that? I
I
mean,
like whatever Yasmin likes as long as she's Frankensteining my vocal and throwing some magic on
We can
my vocal
usually
chops.
we can usually Frankenstein things with Ableton stock plugins. I can allow that to happen, so that's fine. Frankensteining is our word for like creating a final vocal out of like pieces of vocals.
and if there's lastly, my last question, if there is, you guys have traveled almost the entire world, but if there's one place you haven't gotten to go, what would it be? Or if there was one place that you haven't gotten to play at, what would it be?
Oh,
Or where, I
Pakistan. We
guess?
mentioned that
But
earlier.
yeah,
Playing in
Pakistan's the
Pakistan.
number one for
Where
Okay.
sure.
else?
I have one, but it's for specific selfish reasons. I
Okay.
really want to go to the country Georgia because I'm really into winemaking and they have some of the oldest winemaking in the world. It's like almost 10,000 years old. They're like the
Oh my
originators
gosh.
of like the natural wine movement, but from 10,000 years ago before it was hipster. So I really want to go there and just experience the culture there because I think the culture in itself is really scrappy in a good way. Like they don't waste anything. They
Mm.
make something out of everything. And I just really would love to experience them firsthand.
I feel that. I mean, it's going to be nice to be able to actually get out and see the world now,
Yeah, exactly.
after so long. And so I hope we all appreciate it,
Oh,
a lot more. And I believe, didn't you just go on a trip?
I did for my 30th birthday. I
Yeah.
went.
So like, I mean, like, did you find yourself, not to get too far off topic, but just appreciating the fact that you were able to do that more,
Oh yeah,
I bet.
I found myself turning a corner and seeing like a beautiful old church or monastery or villa and just crying. Just like not able to help my emotions or like seeing a sunset over like beautiful rolling hills in Tuscany and being like, I'm here right now? What it was very crazy. So I felt deep gratitude for it. But then also deep gratitude coming home to LA because our whole family is here. It's weird. It was both. I'm like, I'm so grateful that I can travel, but then I'm also so grateful that we've lived in this beautiful place during pandemic that yeah, the weather's really always nice and our family is close and we've been safe. So it kind of made me feel both things. So yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And this was a great conversation. I hope you felt the same.
Yes.
It has been an absolute blast. And this album is a smash. And I think you guys should be very proud of yourself. And I think one of the coolest things that you said too, Yasmin, that I think I wrote this, was that your production level, you guys' production level, has elevated to a level in your careers that is far beyond the past year. So I think that that's really cool to see you guys are still evolving and creating your best work. So
Thank you.
you guys should be very proud. And this album is unbelievable. And we look forward to seeing you guys on tour.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Creighton.
much.
Thank you.